Hi everyone, my name is Ryka Chopra and I'm part of YouthSTEM. And today I'm excited to be teaching you guys about combinatorics. So, combinatorics is one of the four main kind of topics in math. So, you have algebra, number theory, geometry, and then you have counting and probability, which is combinatorics. And I like to think of it as two main parts. We have counting and then you have probability. So this is going to be a two-part series. The first one we're going to focus on probability and what that is, and the second part we're going to focus on counting and the different kinds of counting techniques. So first up, we have probability. So now, what is probability? So probability is how likely something is going to happen. So if you have like a half chance of winning a game, um, or a 1/3 chance of ordering something, then that's what probability is. It's like any kind of like chance. You might have heard this word a lot, and it's used quite frequently in everyday English language, but we're going to get into the actual mathematical part of it. So you use probability whenever you're unsure about the outcome of an event, and it's used in a lot of different things like games, statistics, or even basic kind of usages. And a lot of career options involve being able to work with numbers and probability. So let's start with a very basic example, which is flipping a coin. So when you flip a coin, you have two options, heads or tails. And there are only two possible outcomes. You can't get something that is not a head or a tail. So if you want to find the probability of your coin when you flip it landing on heads, then you have to see what the favored outcome is. So favored outcome over the total number of outcomes. Okay, so what this means is we want to find out how many times you can get heads, like what's the chance of you getting heads, and then we want to divide that by the total like outcomes that you can have. So the total number of outcomes is easy. We can only have heads or tails, and your favorite outcome is there's only one. It's just heads because you want to see the probability of getting heads. So there's one way you can get your favorite outcome, and there are two ways you can get the total number of outcomes. There are two total outcomes, so this ends up being 1/2. So the probability of getting a head when you flip a coin once is 1/2. So that's an example of like the most basic example of probability. And another example is if you roll a die. So rolling a dice. So you have a dice here, and then you have the dots, whatever, it's 1 through 6. So you know that you can roll any of the numbers from 1 to 6. And let's say we want to find the probability of rolling a 3. So again, we can just use this formula, so favored over total. So total outcomes we know is 6 because there are 6 possible numbers you can roll. And then what is our favored outcome? So our favorite outcome is you want to roll, I guess a 3. If you want to roll a 3, then there's only one way we can roll a 3. So you can't roll any of the other numbers. There's only one 3. There aren't like several 3s in this list, so it's just 1/6. So the probability of rolling a 3 is a 1/6. Okay, so now that we've gone over some basic examples, let's look at this rolling a dice kind of case with a little twist. So now let's erase this and then look at a different case. So we're rolling our dice again, but let's say we don't want just the 3. Let's say we want the probability of rolling a 1 or a 3. A 1 or a 3. Okay, so we want to find the probability of 1 or 3. And this is how you write probabilities. This is kind of like the basic way of writing probability. So your favorite outcome is inside the parentheses and you just have a p before it. So again, we want the probability, I'll write it over here, of favored over total. So 1 or 3, that's actually 2 right now because out of these numbers, 2 of them fit like our criteria. So that's 2 over, and then our total number of outcomes is again 6. So in this case, the probability is 1/3. So probability applies to multiple cases as well. Okay, so now that we have that, let's move on to some basic probability equations, kind of. So now let's say you're rolling, and again, I'll just use the dice example. Let's say you're rolling not 1 die, but 2 die. So let's do that over here. And I'll keep the favorite over total again. So let's say you're rolling 2 die. So you have 1, and then you have 2. So each of the die again has the same numbers, 1 through 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now that you have 2 die, let's say what is the probability that you roll a 3 on the first die and a 3 on the second die? So one thing that is really important here is the word and. And there's a big difference between the words and or. These are not the same thing. So let's look at the question right now, which was and. We want to roll 3 in one and a 3 in the other. So to do this, whenever you have and, so like probability of A and probability of B, you're going to multiply the two probabilities together. P times A, P of A times P of B. So in this case, the probability of a 3 in the first die is 1/6. The probability of a 3 in the second die is 1/6. So we multiply these two, and then that ends up the total probability is 1/36. Now, if I asked what is the probability you get a 3 on the first die or a 3 on the second die, then it's different. So if you have PA or PB, then you're going to add the probabilities together. So in this case, again, you have probability of 3 in the first one is 1/6, probability of a 3 in the second one is 1/6, but now you're going to add them. And this ends up being 2/6, which is 1/3. So those are the two kind of basic things you want to look out for, and the most basic equations that you'll encounter when going through probability. And that is a very broad summary of what probability is. So I hope you learned a lot from this lesson, and I'll see you in part 2 for counting. Thank you.